Okay, so let's move on. So once you've established the courses and the students completing those courses, there is a subgroup of students who also you need to identify. These are your SCTE completers, your student career technical education completers. So these are students who are in a pathway, CTE pathway, and are intending to complete a 2-course, 3-course pathway based on that specific pathway. And once the student completes the capstone course, and assuming that student has followed the sequence throughout his academic, years in high school, once he completes a capstone course, that's when you report the SCTE record. So this is just stating that the student completed a CTE pathway in the current academic year. That's important. You only report a SCTE record if a student is in a pathway and completed the capstone course in the current academic year. Okay. Do not report students who just merely completed a capstone course because probably they were in an elective, or they just for some reason took that course just to complete some units, and so do not report them. You only report the SCTE file to identify students who completed the pathway. Okay. So what are the data collected within an SCTE record? First is the SCTE completer info. So this is not directly indicated in the SCTE record, but it is implied that once you submit an SCTE record, and there are two things that's being implied here. The student completed the capstone course, and based on that, they completed the minimum 300 hours required to finish the pathway. And of course, they completed with a grade of C minus or better. And then you also identify the actual CT pathway code that the student completed, and the academic year when that pathway was completed, which is obviously it should be this current academic year. Okay. So how do I identify the student groups? So because there are lots of students attending and completing courses, right? CTE courses. So in general, a CTE participant is anyone who completed a CTE course with a grade. A CTE participant can be a CTE non-completer or a completer. Okay. A non-completer could be someone who is in a pathway but hasn't completed the full 3-course or 2-course pathway that the state prescribes. A non-completer could also be someone just taking any CTE course for an elective. Okay. For that matter, a non-completer should only have 2 data sets, a CRSC and SCSC record. Okay. Do not submit a CTE record for a non-completer participant. Now, a CTE completer participant is anyone who completed a minimum of 300 hours in a state-approved CTE pathway and successfully passed the capstone course in that sequence and with a grade of C minus or better. So if you to identify a CTE completer or even differentiate it from non-completer participants, you report 3 sets of data. You have your CRSC, SCSC, and SCTE. Okay. The SCTE will differentiate it from all others who completed a CTE course. So just a way to reinforce this. So again, you have your for CTE participants who are not CTE pathway completers, you only submit the CRSC and SCSC file. Do not submit an SCTE record. For completers in this current academic year, you submit the CRSC with the CTE course, the SCSC reflecting that the student completed the capstone course, and then you also have the SCTE record that identifies this current academic year and the pathway completed. Okay. So how do you figure out what is a capstone course or what is a concentrator course. Okay, so let's look at the valid code combinations document. So first of all, when you go to the valid code combinations document, let's filter for just NA, which is the valid codes in this current academic year. And then, of course, you have all of these courses, right? As you can see, you have your CTE courses here. So let's say we have a state course code 102. So you have here the CTE pathway, and then you have basically a set of courses for each pathway, right? So you have a CTE pathway here and also a sub pathway. Sometimes a field is so large that it branches out into sub pathways, and so there are some sub pathways that you have to follow as well, assuming the student is in a pathway, right? So in each pathway there are designations, state course code designations. You have here an intro course, a concentrator course, and a capstone course. So to identify this within the pathway, you could just filter for yes or yes here. So let's do this for 102. Let's just highlight that, highlight that. Okay. So just a question, if a student completed a pathway of CT pathway code of 102, what SCSC record and course code should the student reflect in student details? What should have the student completed in this current academic year in terms of course completion to complete pairing the proper reporting of this course? Okay, that's correct. 7132 or 7135. Okay, that's correct. So when you claim that the student is in a CT pathway course or CT pathway and completed that pathway this year, there should be a corresponding SCSE record reflecting the student's enrollment and completion in these state course codes. Okay. Failure to do that would then trigger certification errors. So there are questions. Okay, what if the student inadvertently did the pathway in the wrong sequence, right? They did the capstone last year and doing concentrator this year. Well, a workaround on that is to report both concentrator and capstone. If you want to report the student as completing a pathway, it should be in this current academic year, and there should be an SCSE record. So if the student has a concentrator course this year, finished the capstone last year, might as well report both this year just so to fulfill that data requirement. Okay. So that's how to interpret the valid code combos document and use it when reporting pathways. Okay. So this is just a slide that identifies the same process. Okay. Your turn, Nate.